Kasiano Paul, and I'm from here, Pohnpei, from across the street. To me, liberation is a movement away from oppression within the context that we will be discussing. It's basically liberation from one colonial power to another colonial power. So that's what liberation in this context, like Pohnpei liberation. Well, it's the American naval force who liberated us from the Japanese after the World War II. That's around 1947. That we were finally liberated from Japanese physical oppression. Because from our perspective, we were physically oppressed by the Japanese, who had their own agenda in mind to build the islands according to their own design, something which we don't share. We don't share in that conviction to develop our islands and pattern it the way the Japanese see it. And because we don't share that conviction, we see it as an aggression, because we were forced to do what they intend to do in these islands. As when American naval forces were arriving after the Japanese defeat, and we saw them as our liberators during that time. I've been more oppressed than liberated because as I look back, this is why I say this. My grandfather used to describe the Japanese as hardworking people. His resentment about Japanese is that they have this system of black and white. Huh? You either do it or don't do it. And if you don't do it, you're against them, so they punish you for that. It's physical punishments. And it has evidence of development during their time. Development of the islands. We were exporting bonitos. We were producing our own sugarcane. We were growing our own rice, making our own chips, potato chips, during the Japanese time. That is admirable. But nowadays, with the compact money being come to us to use it for our own development, we were not proving ourselves to be capable of developing ourselves on our own. We just use the money in the salary force, in the workforce. And instead of using it the way the Japanese did in the past to develop the island economically, we use it for administrative purposes, which is really toppling of what we modeled our government based on the American system, and yet we were not able to generate revenue to keep us, to sustain our survival, especially our economic survival. So, well, if historically we see and heard that Japanese were physically oppressing Pohnpeians. Now, when the Japanese were gone and Americans came, they, although did not physically oppress Pohnpeians, they mentally and emotionally oppressed Pohnpeians by making them comfortable with the status quo. To put it more precisely, making us lazy. And so I think that's where we need to be liberated. To be liberated from being comfortable with the government will do this, the government will do this, they will do this, instead of taking the responsibility on ourselves. And this is where liberation needs to take place, in the self-initiative for self-growth. educate ourselves, take initiative for our own development. Even if basic things like gardening, to grow things for myself, yes, do for oneself, yes, precisely. I think this is where the first step of liberation for current Pohnpeian should be. Then later on we can move out into the community and later on to the municipality and the state.